All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a small group today, which could be wonderful. So whatever questions you all have, feel free to send those in. During the call today, we are going to go through several updates and reminders around Compass. And then we'll also share with you just some updates on the Ed development team, and of course, answer whatever questions you all have during the call. I am going to turn it over to our Director of Educator Accountability, Jenny Montezuma, and she is going to walk us through Compass evaluation updates.
Good afternoon, everybody. I see a couple of familiar names here, and so I just want to give you a shout out for accessing our office hours and the Compass inbox for all the questions that you might have around the upcoming evaluations. So for a couple of you, this may be repeated information, which is just good to submit, and for others of you, this may be new. So please do ask anything as I'm going through this. So just a reminder to all of you that all of last year's uploads need to be in the CIS system by August the 27th. We do have office hours that go from 12 to 1 in 15 increments. You just email compass@la.gov to request those. And just want to remind you that we are sending out reminders as well. So each week there should be an email going out to your HR admin or your data admin or whoever has confirmed with us that they are the CIS administrators to let you know the percentage of uploads that you have at this time. I want to add one other thing that is not on this slide that we've been getting a lot of questions about in the past couple of days, which is just a reminder that for leaders, because one of their SLTs connects to the SPS score, you do not need to have the leader evaluations in at this time. That window will reopen in late fall, early winter once those scores are in. Something that we are wanting to make sure that everyone feels comfortable with is the evaluation terminology that we use. And so I think it's just always important to delineate these three different categories. Often you will hear Compass, and when we say Compass, we're talking about the entire system of evaluation, not just a rubric. When we talk about the Compass rubric, there are several outside of the ones which are posted in the Compass library. There are several that are automatically accepted. The NIET rubric and the class rubric, both are automatically accepted and kind of included when we talk about the Compass rubric. What that vocabulary means is approved rubrics. And the other potential is that you have an alternate rubric that you use, and so you have submitted an alternate rubric waiver for something that is not Compass, NIET, and class, and have that approved and are using that. And then finally, the Compass information system is our system of technology. That's where we house all the scores and the information on SLTs and performance evaluations. And so all of you, regardless of what type of rubric you are using, should be loading your evaluation scores into this system. This is the system that communicates with certification. And so whenever we ask the why do we need to upload all of this, is because it's so very important to all of our educators that they're able to maintain and also move up in certification levels. And they can't do that without their evaluation scores. So we thank you for making sure that that happens. And that's exactly what I was just saying. I got ahead of myself. That whenever sort of the brass tacks of getting all of this entered in starts to feel overwhelming or like a lot of details, just remind yourself you're going to have some happy teachers at the end of it because their certifications won't be put on hold because their evaluation scores will be put in the system of record. And so I want to go over a little bit of the difference between how the standards of effectiveness were calculated last year versus this year. This year, we'll go back to what we could call our pre-pandemic normal. And so there will be 2 formal observations regardless of the observation score. There will be 2 SLTs and VAM will return this year. So for your VAM teachers, the total percentage of the score will be 15% SLTs and 35% VAM. For non-VAM teachers, just like years prior, it'll be 50% of student outcomes. I want to name one thing about the professional practice score and the 2 formal observations. Prior to the pandemic, if you were highly effective, you only needed 1 evaluation, but that was based on the year prior VAM score. Since we do not have a year prior VAM score for this upcoming year, every single teacher will need 2 observations. And then moving forward, it will return because we'll have VAM at the end of this year. I want to pause for a second since we have a smaller group. That's kind of a lengthy sentence there. Are there any questions about that while we're on this slide?
Hey, Jenny.
I know.
Hey.
You.
Good to see you too. Just real quick, VAM, can you just remind me, it's Algebra 1 and Geometry have VAM, but not Biology, not US History?
You know, I don't want to misquote. I have a slide which I will pull up and copy and paste into the chat once we're through these slides, and it will tell you exactly who is VAM eligible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Any others on this slide? Okay, thank you. I think we can move. So just a reminder, when we think about student learning targets, there will be 2 required for this year. And when you look at creating that formula, different LEAs do it in different ways. So some LEAs create the type of SLT or the exact assessment that's needed, the exact mastery level that's needed for the entire LEA. Others leave it up to the school, and some schools leave it up to the teachers pending principal approval. So all of those methods are authenticated in policy as acceptable methods of thinking about what the SLT will be. And so really what you want to think about is what assessment is going to actually do what an SLT was built to do, right? And an SLT was built to progress monitor, to make sure that we're getting students to where we want them to be. And so we really leave it up to every LEA to choose the assessment. Where we have X number of students, we want that to be as many students as makes sense. Where that might change is if there's 1 student, let's say it's a 5th grade class, and they only pop into the class for math, but you're setting an ELA SLT, you may not include that student in the ELA SLT because they're not in that class. But I want to accentuate too that we certainly don't preclude special education students in the number of students. In fact, policy makes sure that we don't. So when you see X number of students, make sure that it is the number of students actually involved in the assessment that you're using. And over X amount of time. So the reason that that is general is because different grades and different classes operate differently. If I teach an algebra course for 1 semester, it doesn't make sense to make an SLT that lasts a whole year. So really progress monitoring for what is acceptable for what I'm teaching, as well as the outcome there. One difference between this year and last year. So last year, any state monitored assessments could not be used. This year, any assessment can be used. So whatever your LEA or district feels comfortable with is what we want you to go with this year. At this point in time, there's no restrictions. And then a reminder that for leaders, currently policy does require 2 SLTs for leaders. 1 should be on the school performance score. That was a little bit different last year. We gave some different options. And the other should be most likely an ELA or math improvement goal. And so making sure that your leaders have those SLTs set accordingly. It's also resetting back to the way it has been prior to the pandemic. And here we are back to what I was saying again. I'm just saying it a lot because I think that's how I remember things. Just a reminder that everybody needs 2 observations, and those are the formal observations. You know, ideally, when we look at what is an evaluation cycle, we know that there should be a lot of formative evaluations going on in between. So we don't want to mislead you into thinking we only want people to have someone in their classroom twice a year. The way we move the needle to better teaching, better instruction, better leading is through constant observation feedback cycles. For the purposes of documentation and final scores, we need 2 formal evaluations for every evaluated person. And all of those, whether you are at a charter or at a direct run school, should be entered into the CIS system per what I was describing earlier with the different types of rubrics you might be using. And so those rubrics are available to you in our Compass library. And you can access everything that you see here: leader, counselor, content leader, and mentor teacher rubrics in the Compass library. Also, this link, which you'll get with this deck, goes to the rubric waiver form. So as long as that rubric mirrors the Compass rubric, which is derivative of the Danielson rubric and is on a 4-point scale. Some people submit those to us when they like to use slightly different terminology just to keep it transparent for their staff. That goes through an approval process, and you will receive approval for that. If you have already been approved for an alternate rubric waiver, you do not need to resubmit per policy. Just make sure that you have documentation that you have already been approved for it. Another note that I want to make, you don't have to go back, is just to say that we really spent a lot of time last year vetting the Compass rubric when we were having so many different formats, from virtual to in-person to blended, to make sure that the Compass rubric was applicable in all of those environments. And we had a committee that was put together to do so. And we determined that it is applicable in all of those environments. So if you have a blended environment or a virtual environment as part of your scope, that rubric still applies. So what you see here is our timeline. This is also available for you in the Compass library, so you don't need to remember everything you're seeing at this moment. But CIS will be open on September 10th to enter your rosters. Unlike years prior, you are able to add new employees. You don't have to ask for their release during this window, so that that cuts down on having to figure out where they were before and get permission to release them. You can straighten out your rosters starting September 10th and going through next August. However, after January, you won't be able to do it. So we really recommend that you get that done early on. Someone will have to do it for you in the Compass team. So making sure those are in and that SLTs are set and entered into there. We have a big window for that, but obviously recommend, and it's a recommendation. We obviously recommend that those are made as soon as possible, so the assessment window can be and the monitoring window can be as long as possible. And then finally, making sure to monitor observation progress. We get a lot of questions about, hey, I had a teacher come in October, so do I still need to do 2 evaluations? And the answer that I say is yes, because it's good practice if you have a new teacher come to make sure that you evaluate them twice. We also want to, when the time window makes sense, make sure that we give them a full evaluation and they're not skip hopping a year of those numbers being put in there. If someone were to come to you in late April, that's a very different story. They ought to have a final evaluation cycle where they were coming from. So that's why that time span is so long. Please make sure that you are getting those scores in. And then making sure that the final SLTs are collected before teachers leave the school year, to make sure you have all those numbers to put in and they've been approved of. So that's the general timeline for getting things into CIS. Again, these are recommendations. They are not policy implied, but best practice implied. Finally, we're about to post this upcoming year's rater reliability training to the Compass library. It will be available in there for you after Labor Day. It is a self-guided training. However, anybody who is formally evaluating needs to complete this training prior to a formal evaluation. And so what this training will go over is a little bit of what I've talked to you about today, as well as just norming on how do you check yourself as to whether you happen to lean high or low in your scores, and make sure that the scores are equitable for everyone who's being evaluated. At the end of that training, there is a survey. It is a JOT form, and when it's completed, it gives us a running record of everybody who's completed that evaluation training. So I often get requests for, did so-and-so complete this training? And all I have to do is go in and look, and I can give you the exact timestamp for when they completed it, or tell you if they didn't. So, about for those of you who've been around longer than 3 or 4 years, certificates of completion used to be sent out. What will happen now is that in November, a finalized list of everyone who has done that will be posted to the Compass Library, and anyone who comes after that you need to check on, we can check on that for you.
All right, Ginny, we had 2 questions. One was asking for the link to the deck, and Nicole has posted that. So thank you, Nicole. And then the second question is, do we have to designate somewhere if we want to use the mentor or content leader rubrics?
That's a great question. Not at this time. Our system is going to transfer to a different technology in the next couple of years. And when it does, you'll be able to state that you're using the mentor rubric or the content leader rubric. Meanwhile, if you want to put it in the notes section, it's always helpful. But there's not a way that you have to designate it that way. Did that answer the question for whoever asked it? Oh, you're on mute, Noelle.
That was me again. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the mentor side, if it's NIET like TAP, I know that's covered because it automatically gets calculated. I stumbled upon those this summer, and I was thinking, oh, this would be a nice way to designate our full-term mentors with residents and give them that rubric. But I didn't know if we had to ask for permission or anything. But it sounds like we can use it, and then we can make a note in there.
Yeah, and exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I will post
right.
the VAM right now, but if there's any other questions, I'll be here. You can put them in the chat as we move forward.
Thanks, Ginny. So the last couple of things, just wanted to give you all an update. So as you all know, our agency has restructured with Dr. Brumley coming on board, and we've also had a lot of movement with the work and people and teams. And so I just wanted to share with you what our educator development division looks like. So within our division, we have 4 teams where we lead work around developing educators from pre-service to system level leaders. And so we have a teacher development team that is led by Nicole Bono, and you could see the types of the major work streams that she oversees. We also have our leader development team, which is led by Victoria Dunn, our educator accountability team, which is led by Jenny, who you just heard from, and then our special projects team, which is led by Markeisha Bartholomew. And so these are the major work streams that our whole division leads. And I wanted to give you all that along with their emails. So those are located here in case you have any questions for anything related to educator development. I also just wanted to see if you all had any questions about anything related to educator development initiatives. So besides Compass, I know we focused on that today because we have some deadlines approaching, but just wanted to see if you all had any questions about any of the other work. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of quick reminders. These are things you've been seeing in the System Leaders webinar, our weekly newsletter, some of our monthly newsletters, but definitely just wanted to highlight those today. So if you have not subscribed to the Teacher Leader Lagniappe podcast, please do. It is really a great tool that we are using to reach all of our educators across the state. And so you can subscribe to that. We just launched the podcast a few weeks ago. We also will be highlighting school systems and schools that are doing great things. So you could submit pictures, stories, newspaper articles. If you have a school that's won an award, anything like that, you could submit them using the link here. If you have questions, let me know. Also around the corner is the summer learning program survey submission, and that is due on the 27th. School systems are submitting one survey for their entire school or for their entire school system that will indicate the implementation of their summer learning programs this summer. So that is due on the 27th. Also, we have a webinar tomorrow for real. So if your school system received funds for these tutoring micro grants for pre-K through third grade literacy, that coordinator or any of your academics team that plays a part in this work should definitely attend the webinar tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We also have some updates with our staffing and scheduling guidance. So we are making additions to our best practices guidance, specifically around hiring retired teachers, incorporating addressing unfinished learning and IEPs, and then more description around different options for what acceleration can look like within a school day. And so while this initiative was released in February, we received feedback from the field over the past several months, and we are incorporating that into the guide. We also have our next suite of professional development options at no cost for school systems to attend. So we did the same set of these in the spring. We are doing this round this summer, and we'll do another one of these in the fall, which will include a best practice webinar on staffing and scheduling, the job alike support sessions that we'll have, and then we also have 2 Q&A sessions. And so you'll need to register for each of those. But if you are definitely in the academics world or educator development world, I highly recommend attending 2 of these, which would be the best practice webinar and then the job alike support session for district leaders. So if you all are not looped into this work, this would be a great opportunity for you to hear one of the largest things that we've been pushing out to the agency over the past several months. And then, of course, Accelerate. We are in a new school year, and we have a lot of people who are new to this initiative. And so we are delivering these 3 webinars live. So we did these in February, and we'll be doing them again. So if you have school leaders, teachers, district leaders who are now involved with our Accelerate initiative, which is our pre-K through high school tutoring strategy, these would be the webinars for them to go to. So our overview webinar will be next Wednesday. That will be a very high-level overview of the initiative. And then we'll have a math and ELA resources webinar that is really great for school level leaders and then ELA teachers or math teachers to attend, that will dive in deep into one of the pillars, which is on high quality material. So again, there are the links and the times for you all to attend. We also are releasing a professional development series on acceleration, and this is at no cost to school systems. These trainings are being developed alongside NIET, and they are focused on acceleration through different contexts that I'll share with you in a second. But any teacher, school leader, teacher leader, district leader should definitely attend the ones that are appropriate to their work. They are full day sessions, and we are offering them virtually and in person several times over the course of the school year. So there will be 6 different professional development categories. They will start at the end of this month. The first one is on data. The second one is around collaboration. The third one is around acceleration as far as what do the options look like and how do we individualize that for each student based on their needs. And then we have a math session, an ELA session, and then one for planning your summer learning program. So again, each of these are offered at no cost. They are offered multiple times throughout each of those months. So you'll have tons of options, and there will be some in person as well. And you can register for several of these trainings already. So the first 3 are ready for you and your school leaders to register for. The next 3 will be available to register later in the month. All right, so those are our last reminders. I'll open it up again just in case anyone has any questions about anything ed development. And if not, we will wrap it up. Anyone have any questions? Oh, and thank you, Nicole, for posting the BAM eligible content areas.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know if Jenny's still on the call. This is kind of a really random question from our office hours. Yeah, hey. I didn't come here expecting to see you, but since you're here, we still can't find that file that you had us download so that we could upload all the scores at one time. Wait, you're on mute, sorry.
I'll send it to you after this
Okay,
call.
thank you, thank you.
Anything else? All right, well, you all have a great rest of the week. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.